Good morning. My name's Callum Kerr. I'm a client director at Sabio, and I'm delighted to welcome on the stage with me my colleague Kevin McGahey, who is head of AI, and more importantly, because customers are almost the most important people in the room, Teresa Restucci, who is head of global engagement centres at British Airways. So thank you, Teresa. I know you agreed to do this a wee while ago, and then suddenly it catches up with you, and you're doing 3 things on stage today, so thank you so much. It's really appreciated. Now, we all know who British Airways are. Some of you may even have travelled here on British Airways. Some of you, Johan, have just come back from an amazing British Airways holiday. But Teresa, perhaps what people don't know is what is behind the airplanes that makes it all run. So if I can pass on to you, just to give people a flavour for the organisation you have.
Brilliant. Thanks, Callum. So just a bit of a context, first of all, about who we are. Obviously, we are an airline first. A small part of our overall operation is our contact centres. So to give a bit of a size and gauge of who we are, our contact centres make up about 10% of our overall employee population. But in terms of our operation, that's the aviation part, we carry 40 million customers a year to 80 different countries, 200 destinations and 475 flights a year. The contact center part of what we do, we manage 18 million contacts a year. That could be customer relations cases, or it could be direct entry. We have 8 engagement centers globally, so some of those are our in-house sites, and we have some outsourced for specialist provision of languages and back office bits and pieces. We have about 4,000 colleagues globally looking after our customer care, and we currently have 7 customer channels.
Fantastic. And we've been working together now for just over 2 years, but perhaps you could talk about the customer experience challenge that we've been working on together.
Yeah, so if we go back a couple of years, we'll go back to COVID. Obviously very, very challenging in the airline industry, but almost as equally as challenging as the COVID years was the build back post-COVID. So for the next couple of years, what we saw was the demand for aviation came back way, way faster than anyone could predict. And what that meant was we had a lot of operational challenges trying to meet that demand. And ultimately, for me and the team in the engagement centres, we had a huge, huge amount of customer contact come through to us. I'm sure lots of people probably have either been impacted or seen on the news. We had a lot of cancellations as we tried to kind of service as much as we could. So a lot of people come through to us. During COVID, we didn't recruit. We weren't actively removing heads from our contact center, but we didn't backfill attrition. So what that meant is we naturally had a decline, and the post-COVID years, we were massively ramping up our resource as well. So we kind of had this double whammy, new agents, huge demand, and probably unsurprisingly, our wait times were massive. If you could actually get through to wait, you probably, if you tried to call us, you might have hit a busy tone actually. So we had a few problems, and almost more so than the actual operational problems, we didn't actually understand why people were calling us or contacting us in the first place. We had an idea. We had, disposition codes. We were putting out an agent survey, but obviously not very accurate, didn't really give you an idea. And for me, I would be sitting with agents, listening in, and you'd get a little gauge of what's happening, and you kind of take away some bits that a lot of people were contacting about. What I say is kind of a low value contact. Say, how many bags can I take to New York with me? That information is serviceable online, it's easy to find, but people needed reassurance. So that was a real problem, to see actually how many people are calling about things that is in that low value category bucket, and almost taking up a phone line and one of our precious agents from something that's really important, where a customer's had a really difficult cancellation, could be a down route night stop, it could be a high value sale they want to make, and actually our agents are taken up answering something that's quite low value instead. So that was part of the problem, and obviously it says on there, we were not offering a very good customer service at the time. We didn't actually had a survey on the line. I don't think we needed to hear the exact number of probably where we were at, but given that most calls would have started with I've been waiting for 20, 30 minutes and now my flight's cancelled, it's not a great way to start that. So really, really kind of difficult place for us a few years ago. So what we wanted to do, use data to actually understand why people were calling us and do something about that. We wanted to be able to push self-service capabilities for customers when they want to, and give them that option and show them how they can service things themselves. And ultimately, again, like I said, it kind of frees up our precious agents to deal with people in the moment who really need to talk to someone.
Okay, so with this significant challenge, in comes Sabio, and Kevin, maybe you could take us through the approach we took as we worked with British Airways.
Yeah, sure. So one of the real positive parts of our engagement with BA is, as Teresa said, they really identified the need for data and to use data to justify the decisions that we're going to take, to work out what their roadmap should be. And often that's a challenge we face with businesses, is helping them realise that data is actually the valuable thing that you need to use to go forward. So in our engagement, we started off small. We deployed what is a methodology that we have at Sabio called intent capture and analysis. Ultimately, what that means is we deployed an AI, a conversational AI, at the start of their IVR journey that just said, in a few words, why are you calling today? Now, the data that BA had, as you said, a lot of disposition codes, a lot of agent surveys. The challenge with that is the accuracy of data, or the consistency of those who provide it. So by putting this in the IVR and allowing AI and our analysts to then construct an intent model that really understood and was always consistent and repeatable, maybe we actually build up a really strong data set which was robust enough to make decisions on what we did going forward. And I think one of the real positives we got out of this was the collaboration that happened between the British Airways team and the Sabio team. Through that initial project, it takes typically 8 to 12 weeks for us to run that engagement. And the BA team would be on every call. We would catch up a couple of times a week. We would talk through what we were finding. And actually, within BA's world itself, that information spread to other teams, so like the digital team, for example, and how might they be able to change how the online journey works to better service that needs. It goes to the planning team to help them understand actually what's the handling times of those different contact reasons and what might we be able to do to better manage the demand. And the solution that we created was cloud-based, so something that was pretty agile, quite fast for us to manage. It meant that when we were changing the model, when we were updating it, we were getting new insights, we could share it rapidly, but also the evolution of that could happen in real time, in day, without any disruption, without any downtime. And I think what we really learned out of this is that agility gives BA the ability of what's needed to manage a really complex organisation. Like, you talk about all those different countries, you've got people calling from all those different countries if something happens, and all have got different needs. They all have different tier points as well. I'm not a gold customer, I wish I was. But yeah, so they have a lot of different ways of trying to manage customer demand. So I think one of the things to cover off to you, Paul, is like the flexibility that's left you with a solution now that's into production.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of our biggest challenges that we face as an industry is probably, unsurprisingly, some external demand that we can see come through. So on any given day, I never know going into work what is going to happen, and that makes my job quite exciting at times. There's a couple of examples on the screen where, the first one is air traffic control constraints. So this tends to happen in the summer. Last summer, if you take a daily average across Europe, there were 34,000 aircraft movements a day traveling over quite a constrained air traffic control space. And what happens is if there's any kind of slight change to an area there, so there's a strike or an element of that space is closed, it diverts all the aircraft around, and it's kind of like Google Maps. Everyone gets sent the same way, and it causes congestion. So at that point, air traffic control instructs airports to reduce their capacity. And for us at British Airways, we make up about 50% of the overall capacity at Heathrow. So what happens then is we get told, take out X percent, say 10% of the schedule that you're due to fly. And for smaller carriers who might have 2 or 3 services a day, you can't take out 10%. But for us, that could be 30, 50 flights, and that has a massive impact on our operation. And if that happens over the summer, as it tends to do, that's people's summer holidays, people traveling with families, and it's obviously very contentious. People need help in the moment, and they want to pick up their phone and call us. We do our best to rebook where we can, but some people just really have to speak to someone to know what's happening to my very prized holiday I've been waiting all year for. So what's really good about the tool is, like I was kind of saying earlier, it manages to contain customers where it's not urgent or they can self-serve themselves, and it protects our agents to deal with a difficult scenario. And another example we've got on is the Heathrow Airport closure of about a month ago. I don't know if anyone in the room was impacted by that, but that was a very interesting day in my life, at least. Unprecedented, completely closed the whole airfield. But what was particularly interesting about this example, we were able to work with Sabio in the moment, so I think it took about an hour or so, and one of our resilience ideas was, let's put some additional intents on the line. So we put on, fire, Heathrow closure, whatever it was, a couple of extra ones, above and beyond our kind of BAU, our normal intents. And it doesn't sound like a massive number, but in a couple of hours, we were able to contain an additional 600 customers calling who just wanted reassurance to understand, how early do I turn up to the airport? Should I actually go to the airport? Is my flight cancelled? Basic things they could have found themselves, but protected our agents again so that they could service effectively 600 additional customers we wouldn't have been able to do without adding those additional intents in the moment. So that was a really good test case. And then again, slightly more recently than that, we've had the India-Pakistan conflict. And what's sort of interesting about this one is we didn't actually cancel any flights to India. But what does happen is, because the Pakistani airspace was closed, we have quite a lot of schedule flying to India. All of those flights have to route around, which adds an additional 1 hour onto the flight time. Now, the India flights, they have a makeup of about 50 to 60% transfer customers. So if you add in an extra hour into the flight time, you break all those connections. So people traveling to the US, to Canada. So obviously we work in the background with our commercial colleagues to rebook people and fix it in the background. But that creates a huge amount of uncertainty for people who are flying. People might need reassurance to say, is it safe? What's your policy? Can I change my flight? So we had a huge amount of demand come through again in the last few weeks relating to this. And again, being able to put in intents on the tool that relates to it, all to protect people who really need to get through to us. It's a really good test case of how it works, particularly for our industry where we do have this significant unplanned demand at kind of any moment. We don't know what's coming our way. So.
And I think one of the things we found, I don't know if it was the Heathrow Airport closure or something else like a couple of weeks ago, is that by having this constantly running and capturing all of the customer demand coming in, knowing what BAU looks like, the minute it deviates from it, the minute people start to give different reasons, or you see a spike in one contact versus what it should baseline normally look like, actually gives you advance warning that something has gone wrong before it makes its way through the whole response process.
Yeah, I think just touching on that, it was a couple of weeks ago. I think it was our BA.com website. Some of the selling had gone down, and actually it was the tool almost more so than our commercial departments that recognised something was going wrong, because we had more intents come through that were triggering that. So it kind of works both way round, which is interesting.
Great. I mean, I think that's one of the themes that comes through in this, that it's not a case of putting this technology in and come back if you have a problem. It's the way we work together to identify these challenges and evolve it and analyse the data. Maybe we could have a look at some of the overall stats and how it's performed.
Yeah, so we've got now over 300 different intents that we have a way to service customers through the tool with, which is amazing, massive number. We are pushing through successfully about 27% of our calls that go through the tool are handled and contained within it. And we won an award last year for data and insights. And I guess it's worth just pulling out kind of the insight piece as well. It goes back to actually the tool can identify where people are calling about something, and we can look to fix that too. It's not just about the containment. It's, we can go and talk to our commercial colleagues and say, actually, people are calling about this. This is a real problem. Let's change the policy. So yeah, it does have that full, complete circle, which is great.
Yeah. And I think some of those insights you talk about there, a couple of those points have been where we see demand coming through, and it's going back to the digital journey that exists. Like I think that's a big bit about what we've realised together is with these insights, the collaboration that has to happen across a business. Now, whether that's the email comms that you get post-booking, whether it's the ticket issuing or when your boarding passes and stuff become available, or whether it's just seat bookings, and understanding what that customer journey looks like end to end and what are all the different touch points that exist. By capturing this data of when people contact you, we're able to really stitch together that kind of seamless, or that end-to-end journey to work out how do we make it as seamless as possible. So how do you essentially become a bit more predictive in the customer's demands? How do you identify that someone is going to place the call to you 7 days before they're due to book that flight to New York to ask the baggage question? And on day 8, let's become proactive. Let's see how we can communicate with them before their demand ever happens.
That's great. Thanks, Teresa. Thanks, Kevin. So in terms of the platform we put in, I mean, initially it's not been across all lines. It's quite constrained in what it does, but I think it's clearly been a success. And in a world of many AI projects, let's be honest, a lot of them are testing out the functionality and the capability. This one has actually been one that's properly delivered for you. What's next? What do you see the opportunity here in terms of where we go next? Before Kevin gives you a bit of a sales pitch, but I mean, Teresa, what's your perspective on where we can take it?
Yeah, well, honestly, the tool's become a little bit of a crutch, really. Like the idea of, we're going through a big transformation program at the moment, and this is one of the most important things that I'm talking to the team about, being like, this must be protected, because now it's making such a difference to our overall operation. I guess I didn't kind of touch on that on the last slide. That was more about the stats about the thing, but actually we are offering a really good customer service now to customers. People are getting through straight away, and actually anything that risks that is massive. So for us, it's keeping that tool robust, stable, improving, iterations to make it more seamless for customers and improving it more of like continuous improvement way. Where I would like to get to at the moment if a customer goes through the tool but would still like to talk to an agent, of course we'll pass them through and direct to the best agent to suit what they're calling about. What I'd like to be able to do is offer different channels through that, so it might be more appropriate if someone's on their way into work, that actually we offer them a WhatsApp link or a live chat instead, so they don't just have to speak to a voice agent, they would have the choice. Because that's really important for me. It's what's right for the customer. Each customer has a different requirements when they call up. I wouldn't want to assume that we would just hang up on them effectively and send them a WhatsApp link. Let's see where they want to get to. So that sort of the additional choice that we can get to with it, I think, is really important for me.
Great. Kevin, here's your chance.
I've got a list of things we could do. I think multi-channel, so how do you expand into additional channels, but reusing the same functionality, the same understanding. So we know that when we try to deploy to multi-channel and we try to make like WhatsApp or asynchronous journeys available, generally we just create incremental contact. So unless you utilize all the lessons, learnings and all of the solution that's in place today on the voice channel into those other channels, you actually are just creating a little bit more of a problem for yourself. So it's important to leverage what you've already worked on. I think an area for us to go and explore next is how we look at multilingual as well. So how do we manage customers? Like we are British Airways, you are British Airways, and so therefore speaking in English as your primary language is absolutely the right thing to do. But actually, how do we best service the rest of the market that might exist? Especially when we talk about, the flights aren't just going to India or to Pakistan, we have people flying back the way. So how do we best make sure we can service those customers as well?
Okay, and I think one of the things that's exciting is that, so when we deployed this over the top, not fully integrated. And we were able to move at a pace that was unusual, I think, for the organisation.
Yep.
And now that we are taking on a broader responsibility, you do have that capability to really stitch it in a more seamless way to customer journeys and improve them.
It's a great point. Like this is a over-the-top innovation layer ultimately to BA's existing contact centre. So calls still pass through to what was already there. We've not displaced anything, not replaced anything. We're just augmenting what already exists. And what that has allowed, like you say, Callum, is just the pace of change, like the ability to be agile and change something in real time, not to have to go through a kind of IT process where you raise a ticket and then it gets actioned in a couple of weeks' time. like the ability to act then now is something that we just didn't have when we first started this conversation.
I think it's fair to say, as British Airways, it's probably unsurprising as well that we have a lot of legacy systems based around kind of our booking tool and the booking concept with how that works as a legacy airline carrier. And our systems are almost like a ball of wool. It's a big old knot, and you kind of don't know if you pull one end where it comes out the other. And we're going through a massive transformation program to fix all of that. But actually, if you are trying to, from our side at least as British Airways, if you're trying to bring in a new tool or a new tech and it integrates through all our systems, it becomes incredibly complex and isn't something that you really want to do, and it just takes forever and is highly costly. So the ability to add this in as an additional layer over the top meant that we could go really fast, which is not the most commonplace at BA. So yeah, it was amazing. It's gone really well, and like I said, it's my crunch now, so I absolutely need to protect it at all costs.
Well, and one other point that I thought was interesting when we were involved in the EXA process was that you said how when you're going for budget and funding, you actually have real data, whereas in the past, as you put together your business case, that was a bit more challenging to do.
Yeah, I think it goes back to the point about knowing how many people are calling about various different things, and if you can put tangible data to say, actually, this is how many people we know are calling about this is how many people that we can self-serve through, it's just helpful to get the business case through. That's certainly how our organisation works. You get it through much easier if you've actually got tangible benefits out there.
Brilliant. Okay. Well, Teresa, thanks so much for coming and talking today. I think it's a fascinating case study. If anybody wants to talk further about BA, all three of us are happy to do so. But just for the record, Teresa cannot get you a free upgrade. She cannot get you more points. So please don't ask that, because it's the opening patter for everybody. But what she can do and what we can do is tell you about how this has made a real difference for BA. And we're only just beginning to see the potential in terms of where we go next. So thank you very much. Thanks, Teresa.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.